All right, back day. So a lot of times I'll do a lot of band work or dumbbell work. Today we're going to do a lot of cable stuff here. You can pretty much duplicate most of this with bands if you want to. Duplicate all of it, probably. But I'm going to switch things up just to keep it interesting for myself. So we did lat pull downs with the bar. So we're going to switch it up today and go with a narrow grip. So I don't actually, oh, there it is down here. So we could go with this attachment. This is kind of the traditional, and it works well. But I actually prefer having a little more freedom of movement. That you're really locked in with your hand position. Your hands can't move naturally. They're just really kind of, like I said, locked in. So it makes this a closed chain exercise. And when we bring handles into it, now we have a lot more freedom of movement. So I'll show you how I prefer to do these. You'll see a lot of different techniques. There we go. All right. So the mistake that I used to make doing these was always thinking about pulling my hands down closer to my chest, like this, almost this linear motion here, this straight line. And when you start thinking about pulling with your hands, you end up using a lot of biceps. Look at all that movement there at the elbow. So that means you're inevitably using biceps. So what we want to think about is getting more movement at the elbow, driving it back. So look at the difference of this path. See how this is more of like an arc? Here it's down and then it's back, as opposed to, like I said, very linear. And then look at the difference at the elbow. A lot of movement at the elbow, much less movement at the elbow, more movement at the shoulder. So that is the goal in doing these, and I'll show you what it actually looks like while performing the exercise. All right. So if you come to the side here, either side, so this is what I don't want to do. I don't want to pull straight down like this. So instead, I'm going to drive those elbows down and then back. And I feel a nice, strong contraction in my lats when I do that. And keeping the elbows tight to the body. Control that rep speed. So I like to lean back just a hair, but pretty much keeping it there the whole time. I'm not swinging back and forth. We don't want to use momentum. Get a couple more. One more. So here's my checklist when I'm doing these. 1, like to get just a little slight arch in the back. So the way that I kind of keep check of that is I always think about big chest, sticking the chest out and keeping that chin up. And that helps me maintain that little bit of arch in the back, and you get a much stronger contraction doing that. So that's number one. Number two, again, thinking about driving those elbows as opposed to pulling the hands. That's a big one. And then probably I would say number three, and this is a good kind of check system, checks and balances with your resistance level. If I can't, get that full range of motion, squeeze all the way down and drive that elbow all the way back, and be able to control it, pause for a second, then it's a little too heavy. So what I'll do is I'll just drop down just enough, like I said, to be able to control that, get that nice, good squeeze all the way through the range of motion. All right, let's stretch in between. Stretch out those lats. Grab some water, 90-second rest between all our sets, or close to it. We want to keep a tempo here. You know, if you keep this rolling, your workout's going to be about an hour. But if you start bullshitting too much, or resting too much, sitting there checking your phone or whatever you're doing, that hour turns into an hour and 45, and that doesn't make it a better workout. In my opinion, it takes away the intensity. Like, it's not just set by set or rep by rep. Everything builds and stacks on top of the other. You want to build momentum. And so when you stop and rest too long, you're killing that momentum. A lot of times that also translates to a pump. So I'm going to go up just a hair. So maintaining that same discipline, control, but just go a little heavier. We'll see how many you can do, and then I'll adjust on the next and final set. All right, so big chest, arch in the back. Drive those elbows all the way back. Four, 5, 6, 7, 8. Ten. So I was 12. You know, I could go up in resistance and maybe shoot for 8 to 10. The one thing you just want to make sure is that you don't lose that good mind-muscle connection, that good squeeze. And that's what I find is when I start trying to go heavier, can I move it? Yeah, of course. But the chance of compromising your control or form, and also maybe that good mind-muscle connection where you really feel that muscle squeeze, contract hard, sometimes you lose that. So it's finding that fine balance. You know, for me, really easy to make it where it becomes a little bit biceps dominant, and I feel my arms fatigue before my back does. And that was a mistake I made for a long time. I just had a really hard time zeroing in on that and getting that good, like, strong contraction in the lats that you would feel, say, doing biceps. I think anybody can get that kind of mind-muscle connection and really feel that biceps contracting hard, and you get that strong squeeze, and you're like, oh yeah, that's it right there. A lot of us have a hard time getting that feeling in the lats. We're going to do our third set. I'm going to squeeze behind you and grab the bands. And I'm going to do a little finisher here at the end with the bands. Now, if you don't have cables, you could do this entire exercise just with bands. Mimic it exactly. So we'll end up anchoring this over the pull-up bar there. Actually, I'll go up. So let's see if I can keep that same feel, same squeeze. And if I can't, then I just drop back down. All right, chest out. That's 4. That's 6. 7. 8. So forearm kind of unraveled a little there at the end, but that's okay. You know, you can squeeze out a few more reps. So let's see how this feels. I'm just gonna throw it over the top of the bar. Loop the hands in there. That way we don't have to just grab the bands almost as like a lifting strap. And a lot of times I just like to come a little bit lower to get some tension on that band. Same thing. Drive those elbows down. Oh yeah. It's good contraction. It's a nice way to squeeze out a few extra reps. It feels a little bit different. The resistance curve of bands is slightly different. It's just, you know, I know it looks the same, but you just have to try it for yourself. But I will say that the contraction that I get with bands definitely is very unique. It's one of the reasons, you know, I started doing them in 2009 and kind of never looked back. Ooh. All right, that felt good. So now, move on to some other cable work. Like I said, today I'm not doing any dumbbells, barbells. I'm gonna do everything on the cable machine. This is another one that you can do with bands. Anchor it from a similar height. One of the things I like about cable machine or bands is now we can create resistance in all these different planes. And so you can play around with this as far as your different angle. I could come over here with my body angled out this way, drive that elbow down, and that feels good. That's a unique contraction. I can turn square to it. That feels a little different. I could even come out here, drive the elbow out wide. That feels different. So we have so many different options here. So it's just super versatile. But the one thing that I really like is being able to make those small adjustments. You can find that perfect angle where you feel it, because we are all built a little bit different. And I always say that, I prefer to train by feel than just pure mechanics. Like for one person to try to mimic the way another person moves and to feel it exactly the way that other person feels it, sometimes very difficult. So you have to learn to tune in. And that's where that idea of mind-muscle connection comes from, that focus and learning to feel the muscle. So with that said, I kind of liked driving that elbow out a little bit wider and a little higher. Now we're also engaging more of those muscles in the upper middle back. So instead of elbow down here, tight to the body, we're gonna go ahead and come out, get that squeeze. You can brace your feet if you want. You can try the other foot forward, see how it feels. Try both. I prefer this way. I get kind of less twisting in the torso. But same concept, drive that elbow back. Don't pull the hand towards you. I like also getting a nice stretch right here. Nice tension in the muscle. Leads to a nice strong contraction. There's also this idea that tension, mechanical tension on a stretched muscle or a lengthened muscle creates damage to the muscle, a lot like eccentric training. So think about eccentric. You're trying to shorten the muscle while the resistance is lengthening the muscles, right? So it's this stretching effect causing damage to the muscle, which can be a trigger for muscle growth. So same thing in that lengthened position, like for example here, almost imagine a rope that's under this heavy tension from this weight, almost like the little individual fibers of the rope. Imagine them like fraying and under the strain of it. So kind of a similar idea. The one thing you got to be careful of is that in a fully lengthened position like that, almost every single muscle group, also high risk of injury. So you want to be cautious about it. You want to be very conscious with your movements, controlling it. Be smooth, don't be jerky, because there is a greater risk of injury. It's like doing biceps curls. Greatest risk of injury is right here at the bottom. Forgot we're going wide. You notice my other hand here? Have it right on my lat, so I can feel it contracting. And that's what I'm looking for. That helps develop that mind-muscle connection. To be able to literally feel the muscle and zero in on it, to focus on it. Oh, I keep turning that over. We gotta go wider with the elbow. Here. There we go. Talking too much, not paying attention. Yeah. Nice. You know, I've been talking about mind-muscle connection in videos since probably, I don't know, man, you'd have to go back and look, probably 2014 or so. Talking about things like link tension relationship, going back to that same time frame. And now you hear it a lot more, especially mind-muscle connection. But you ask a lot of people, okay, well, what does mind-muscle connection mean? Define it. Some people struggle with it. Some people have a different definition, but that's my definition. It's simply learning to tune into that muscle, learning how to feel it, learning to put your focus in there, and really make sure that that muscle that you're trying to target with an exercise is working, and that you're not just using a bunch of these other assister muscles. So what's going to assist in this movement? Well, your biceps. Well, this isn't a biceps exercise. We happen to be doing biceps today, but this isn't a biceps exercise. I'm trying to zero in on my lats. All right, I'm going to go up in resistance here, stretch it out. Speaking of focus, let me see if I can do this right way, not get distracted. So you notice I'm not turning my hand over in this one. I'm not supinating it palms up like I do when I keep my elbow tight. So elbow wide, hand pronated means palms down. That's 10. Squeeze out a few more. One more. Nice. It's right where we want to be. Go right into the other side. A lot of times in this position, this is where I'll make kind of little body adjustments, whether it's my feet or my hips, my torso. I want to feel just a little stretch here. So I like to turn this hip back just a little bit. And I feel a better stretch there. See? 9. 10. Yeah, one more. Nice. All right, so that was 3 sets, right? I think so. I think so too. But do a little band finisher. Whatever you anchor this to, make sure that you don't have any kind of sharp corners. These are rounded. Still probably not the best for the bands here. So be aware that these are made out of natural latex, and so they are susceptible to getting damaged. So be cautious. So doing the same thing here, but now doing both arms at the same time. So same thing, palms down. Driving those elbows back. Notice how my hands start off pretty close together. Look, I can touch thumbs, but then look how much wider I can go. So with the bands, you have all that freedom of movement. Nice. You can do that with certain attachments, but you'd have to have something that is a lot longer, wider, like this, as opposed to, say, just doing it with handles. You're just not going to be able to get that same kind of spread. All right. That felt nice. We're going to now do a variation of a pull down that feels different. And we're starting off from a wider position, depending on the rack that you're on or the cable machine. If you're in a gym, the distance between the cables is going to be much wider, so it does change the dynamic. You'll see what I'm talking about here. Let me get this bench out of my way. I'll do the first one facing away so you can see what it looks like from that angle. Get the same resistance here. All right. So depending on the machine you're on, if it's taller, you may not have to drop down to the ground like this, but I want to make sure I have tension here at the beginning of the range of motion. And all I'm going to think about doing is driving those elbows wide and then down, angling toward my hips. So wide and then in. It's almost like a semicircular movement. Keep that arch in the back, so chest out, chin up. It's not pulling the hands down, it's driving the elbows. One more. Nice. Now, if you have a wider cable machine, then instead of this angle being like this, it ends up being like that, which I personally prefer. This isn't bad, but if I were in a regular commercial gym, I do prefer it on one of those cable machines. Now, as far as doing this with bands, easy to do. Nice high anchor point. We did these a few weeks back. It's the same exact movement here. Drive the elbows out wide. And down. Actually feels even better than the cable machine, to be honest. Give it a try. You know, a lot of people think I hype up bands because I'm trying to sell bands. Truthfully, I don't really give a fuck. I don't. I never really have. People ask me about bands, which ones I recommend. So I made bands. People can buy them, not buy them. Buy my brand, buy some other brand. Totally up to you. But I did it because I love bands. Just for the reason you just saw, like I love the contraction that I get with them. And I could talk about it all day long, but it's one of those things you just have to experience it for yourself. And when I train with people and have them do it, even people that have been training forever, guys that are huge, doesn't matter, they'll do it and they're like, oh, it's like you can see a little light bulb go ding. It's like once you feel it, it's a game changer. Doesn't mean I think bands are better than weights or weights are better than bands. They're different. But bands definitely have a unique feel to them. All right, I'm going to do this set facing you. Just for a different angle. So, again, it's not here. See how far back my chest is? My shoulders are coming forward. It's arch, chest out, chin up. Drive those elbows out and then down. Nice. 8. 9. 10. Get 2 more. Oh, we got 1 more in there. Look at those hands. Whoo. It's actually, let's grab that band, squeeze out a few more. Nice. One more. Oh. Especially nice doing these where you can loop your hands in there and then grab it. Like I said, it's almost like a wrist strap. That way I'm not worried about grip strength, because a lot of times if you're doing these, if you're training heavy, your grip strength can start to fade toward the end of the set. So being able to use those as a finisher allows you to put your focus on driving those elbows down, not worrying about your grip strength. Which is also why I tell people, don't be afraid to use wrist straps. Not because the weight's so heavy, but because it allows you to take your focus off your hands. All right, we got 1 more of these. It's feeling good. Feeling good. And I think we will do 1 more back exercise before we do biceps. Maybe even if you come over here to the side, be able to see body position. More to the side. Even more. Right there. So here's what I was talking about. We don't want to be in this position. See how my chest is kind of sunken in, shoulders are rolling forward. So pushing that chest out, getting that arch in the back. That's what we want right here. Nice. That's 7. For frame of reference, they're getting tough now. It's starting to feel that burn. 9. I still want to get 3 more. 10. Ah, 12. Wow. Nice. I've had a few people recently ask me my favorite rep range. Everyone's probably got their own favorite, especially depending on the way they train or what their goals are. Of course, building strength versus maybe hypertrophy. And even there's a big variance. You know, some people like to be in that 8 to 10 range. Some people like to be in the 10 to 12 or 10 to 15 or even up to 20. A little bit more volume, more pump. You'll hear people call it pump training. Different stimulus for muscle growth. That pump, driving all that blood in there, you get a lot of buildup of metabolites in there. And that you call metabolic stress. That can be a signal for muscle growth. It's just a different kind of stimulus. So it really depends on what you like. For me, the sweet spot that I like is 12 reps. And it really comes down to finding that sweet spot where I feel like I'm using a heavy enough weight that I can use with control, still feel that good strong squeeze, but then I'm not, sitting there having to do 15, 20 reps all the time. So it's somewhere in the middle, but it's less about whether I'm training for pump or using more mechanical tension. Like people get really hung up on that lately. For me, it's more about that discipline technique. Can I control the weight? Control my rep speed? Can I get that good squeeze, better range of motion? Do it without cheating, without using momentum. Can I get that little isometric contraction? Like those are all the things that I'm looking for. And so I find that for me personally, 12 reps is that sweet spot. All right, so we're done with those. Here's one that I haven't done in a long time that I used to do. So we were actually using these, I want to say it was in last week's workout. We were bringing it all the way down and we were doing a bent over row right here. Challenge is, for me anyway, right now my low back has been not real happy with me. So one of the advantages of doing any rows supported on an incline bench is now you're taking that stress off of your low back. So I don't do them this way all the time. When my back is feeling better, I actually think that potentially there's a benefit here, promoting good posture, core strength, etc. But sometimes it's nice to have these supported. So I'll come with the bench where I can still get a nice stretch here at the end and still be able to get on the bench without this being awkward. It's already awkward. All right. I also have to line this up a little bit better. Now, truth be told, this bench is not as heavy as ones that I would use in a commercial gym. So this one does have a tendency to move. So I can't go ridiculously heavy with it, otherwise this bench is going to start scooting forward on me. So nice stretch here, letting the lats relax and then driving that elbow back. Notice how I'm pulling the handle apart so I can clear the bench, so I can drive my elbow back as far as I can. It's a little light, so I'll probably go to 20 on this, so I don't have to get up and adjust the weight. Make it a productive set. So you notice the elbows are going out wider, and I'm also thinking about squeezing my scapular, squeezing my shoulder blades. I also like to visualize initiating the movement in my shoulder blades before driving those elbows back. So it's scapula, elbows, and hands follow. Nice. Now, sometimes I just like to try things, so experimenting here. So it's one of those moments where kind of on the fly. What I want to see is if I bring this more upright, if I can brace myself a little so I don't slide forward, because I want to use more weight. That actually might work. But see how the bench wants to move? That's what I'm trying to avoid. You wouldn't have that problem in a commercial gym. Usually the benches are heavy enough. But let's see. The other thing too is if you're in a commercial gym, more than likely you're going to have a set of handles that have longer straps on them, and that's going to allow you to pull them apart more and clear this bench more. Probably the one thing that I could do is add at least one extra carabiner on there. If I wanted to, I could actually steal this one too. So making a Y there. What did I do here? Come on. Too funny. All right. Now I got a little more clearance there. So that'll help. See if I can do these without this bench sliding forward. I'm sure there's something I could probably since I don't really use my foam roller anymore. Nah, that's not gonna work. Might work. Oh boy. That's training in a home gym for you. You gotta do what you gotta do. Look at that. A little bit of creative engineering here. Gym engineering. Come on. Never increase the weight. Good one, James. Good one. Now, if this was an edited video, that would have looked like boom, 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 nice and smooth and polished, but that's not always reality. Oh, I can even go heavier than this now. This feels pretty good. Now, I personally like to lift my chest off the bench just a hair. Get that arch in the back that we talked about. So again, initiate that movement at the scapula and then drive the elbows back. Don't initiate it here at the hands. Oh, it feels good. I don't even know how many done, but I'm gonna take this to failure with clean reps, which is a big difference between failure with cheat reps. Nice. All right, so I'm going to increase the resistance now before I forget. We're going to stretch it out. Grab a drink of water. We're going to knock out our last set of these, and we're going to do some biceps. Because it is back in biceps after all. But remember, we are using a lot of biceps here, whether we want to or not. No matter how much we try to target the back, the lats, you're still going to end up using biceps. There's just no way around it. Unless you're doing pure isolation exercises, like a straight arm push down, or if you're in a gym that has a lat pullover machine where the pad is on the elbow. Otherwise, using some biceps, which in our case is why we do a split like this. I don't do it all the time, but this is a variation of, I would call it a type of push-pull. So push being, we did chest and triceps. We just didn't do shoulders. And on back day, you're doing back and biceps. So all these back exercises, we are pre-fatiguing the biceps. So when we come in and do our biceps exercise last, you're already going to be a little tired. There we go. Get that arch, chest out. Oh, yeah, feels good. Honestly, I could go heavier. Let's make this one count. Here we go. Initiate it there in the shoulder blade, the scapula. Nice. Yeah. Now, truthfully, I wish this was a little further away so I could get a little more stretch, but it's okay. I know a lot of people are all hung up on, certain ranges of the motion. Oh, you got to make sure that you're, getting that tension in the fully lengthened position of the muscle. Yeah, I mean, look, there is benefit to it. Like we talked about with length tension relationship. Doesn't mean you have to do it every fucking exercise. So much of what I hear is just pontificating. Gym pontification. So everyone wants to sound like a fucking expert on social media. So they want to take a stance on something. And that's why you start hearing all these absolutes. As I always say, always do this, never do that. That's just not reality. It's a lot of things at work. And here's the simple truth. If you go in, you fucking work hard, and you have the right amount of intensity, you're going to get results. So, that's going to be your meat and potatoes. That's 80% of it, as they say, that 80-20 rule. So then once you really have that down, you know how to go into the gym, you know how to push yourself, take yourself out of that comfort zone, really, start to learn to create that level of intensity that's going to give you the necessary stimulus, then you start refining that. That's when you start fucking around with all the little details, all the little nuances, try different things. You can see for yourself. Try partial reps, try full range of motion, try whatever you want to try, but none of that is a substitute for the intensity. So again, if it were the 80-20 rule, 80% is not technique. That's the 20%. I've said this before, and I don't mean to insult anyone, so I'm certainly not going to name names, but I've known some dumb motherfuckers that know how to come into a gym and train their fucking ass off and get great results. So you don't have to be a rocket scientist to build muscle, so don't try to overthink this shit. All right, biceps. Since we're sticking to the theme of cables here, I don't particularly care for straight bar with biceps. This fully supinated position here is just very uncomfortable for me. And depending on how you're built, I did a video on this once talking about valgus at the elbow, which really just means if you were to draw a line from your shoulder through your elbow to the center of your wrist, some people, it's very straight. Mine's relatively straight. Some people actually have a lot of valgus, and from the elbow, it actually goes out. So now think about doing a range of motion where your hands are locked into one place like this. It's going to put pressure on something because it's not just this perfect motion. We're not machines. You know, we don't have like these perfectly aligned joints. So I prefer more freedom of movement. I also like to be able to go from a more neutral position with my hands where there's less risk of injury here at the bottom, fully lengthened position. This supinated here is the most dangerous position. Anyone who does jiu-jitsu and has been armbarred knows what I'm talking about. So I like to go to a more neutral position at the bottom and then supinate at the top where I can get that peak contraction because our biceps help supinate. See that little movement that you get, that little extra contraction, just supinating your hand. So I like to do it at the top, just not at the bottom. So with that being said, you can come in here and instead of putting the straight bar there, you can do any kind of attachment you want. You could do more of a easy curl style bar, which is what I used to do. So then your hands are at least in a more neutral position all the way through. But again, it's a closed chain exercise. You're locked in and you can't make any adjustments. So I prefer that over a straight bar, but I prefer something like this or dumbbells or bands where I have more freedom of movement. So elbows to the side, like I said, hands in a more neutral position. Squeezing up. You can even lean forward, step back, lean forward just a little bit, get even more tension here at the top. We can't really lock out. Step back even more. Oh, there it is. I like that. It's almost like if you're doing spider curls on a bench, as far as that resistance at the peak of the contraction. Since I'm only doing one exercise for biceps, I want to blast it. Make every rep count. Where are those bands? Bang out a few reps here. Oh man. There we go. Just 2 more of those. Ooh. You know, there's so many debates these days. We're talking about people pontificating, and look, you got a lot of people with great credentials. They don't all agree. So what do you do when one PhD says this, one PhD says that? Who do you listen to? Well, that's why I say you've got to go in there and you got to try things for yourself. Don't just take someone's word for it. Take it into consideration. Use it as food for thought. Go into the gym and give it a try. See how you feel, but don't just blindly follow someone. Don't blindly follow me. So I try to offer these things up as suggestions. But that's why I'm always saying, learn to feel. Learn to feel the movement. See if it works for you. Try to make little subtle adjustments. You have to be a student of the game if you want to be good at it. But that's the case if you want to be good at anything. You know, I've known Jay Cutler, not the football player, former Mr. Olympia, for a long time. Former business partners, and so I heard him say something on social recently, and I don't want to try to butcher his quote, but what he was saying is that he gets all these people that want to sit there and critique his form, and he's like, you know what? That's cool, but at the end of the day, it got me on the Mr. Olympia stage, and it was enough to win 4 Mr. Olympia titles. Kind of hard to argue with. And then, of course, there's always going to be the dumbass who's going to say, oh, yeah, but all the steroids he took. Yeah, well, all those other guys took steroids too. So it's not just about steroids. And the one thing I would say about Jay, having trained with him, his technique and my technique, we like to train slightly differently. I'd say there's probably, some overlap in training principles, but he's got his style, I've got my style, everyone's got their own style. But the one thing that I know about Jay, he's got the work ethic. He's got crazy work ethic. But 2, he knows how to feel and exercise. So, to get into a movement, get into that pocket where you got that good, strong contraction, you're getting a pump, that's what matters. Go in there and work the muscle. Shit. Where's that band? There it is. You can tell I rested too long. All right, we got one more set. You know, I look at all the information that's out there between, you know, these people on YouTube or any other social media platform. I mean, honestly, the information in Chat GPT is pretty good these days because it's referencing scientific journals, all the textbooks. So, I mean, you have to know enough to be able to fact check it. But I can tell you these days it's pretty good. And so I think, man, what would I give when I first started training to have access to all this information? I don't know, you know, it's like double-edged sword. On one side, yes, it's access to all this information that I didn't have access to. I had to ask like the big dude in the gym or flip through the magazines or, you know, go buy Arnold's Encyclopedia Bodybuilding. And then a lot of trial by error. On the flip side, though, it's information fucking overload now. Like I don't think I would want to start training now. I wouldn't even know who to listen to. And you know, the most important thing is just starting, just to do it. Go in there and like I said, just train hard. So if you're bogged down by all this information, it becomes paralysis from overanalysis. And then you end up program hopping, trying this. Oh shit, maybe this is gonna work better. Trying this and trying this. No, the best advice I ever got from anybody ever. He said, look, whether you listen to me, you listen to that guy, or you listen to that guy, listen to whoever you want to listen to, but stick to one thing long enough to try to get results. Don't try to, you know, listen to 3 people simultaneously and mix and match programs and techniques. You're just going to end up confusing yourself. You're not going to know what worked, what didn't work. So I thought that was pretty solid advice at the time. And I didn't have half of the shit that's out there, not even a fraction of it. So it's an interesting time to start working out for sure. And I hope that we're getting back into an era where the focus goes back to what it should be, which is having fun, enjoying this stuff, the camaraderie that there used to be in the gym. Like everybody, every age, every goal, all got along, all respected each other. And that's what made the gym a fucking cool place. It was a cool vibe. And I just don't get that same sense from gyms anymore. So I would love to see more of that come back, more focus on just going in there, training fucking hard, and having fun with it. Nice. All right, home stretch here. Ooh, that almost made me lightheaded. Whew. Jeez. Here we go. That's it. Done. That's back and buys. Make sure you stretch it out. Get some active recovery tomorrow, rest day, and I will see you back here for legs.